The issue with most ideas is anybody who has done anything will tell you that ideas are a dime a dozen. The world is not suffering from a lack of ideas. The world is suffering from a lack of quality execution on good ideas and throwing away the things that you executed on well, but that just turned out were bad ideas. At Active Life, we believe that the healthcare clinic of the future is the gym.
Everybody starts with the best case scenario in mind.
Never sell anything to anybody who is not in the market for what you have.
The only reason we work out is to create the opportunity to recover.
And the healthcare provider of the future is the coach.
And this is why you guys need to get paid well, because what you're doing is really, really hard work.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Turning Pro on the Active Life Podcast. I'm Larry Geyer, and I'm here with Dr. Sean.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Cool. What I would love to dive in with you today is something that I think we face a lot with all of the gym owners and coaches we deal with, not only in our pro path, but also in just DMs and conversations of all different sorts. And that's, what do we do when a staff member, in general, in any institution, has an idea that they think is dynamite, that they think could be essential to running a totally different shop, right? A culture change, something that could happen mechanically that can make a show run like a million times better. And they present it to the gym owner or the business owner in general. And the business owner's like, no, I don't get it. I'm not crazy about it. Mm-hmm. How can a staff member successfully and effectively present an idea to the owner of a company?
I think this is a great question. I'm excited to talk about it because as a business owner myself, I've been on both sides of the extreme of how to do this wrong. One side being anybody who has an idea, we're going to try it because I want you to feel and be as influential in this business as I am. And I've gone the other way where I've been like, look, we're doing this right now. Ideas are currently not welcome. We need to do this really, really, really well. Then we can talk about what else needs to be done. And both of those had really poor outcomes. So I'm glad we're talking about this because over the course of time and experimentation and coaching from people who I've, hired to help me develop this kind of skill, it's become a really clear thing to me that it's not only imperative on the staff member that they present this in a clear way. It's also imperative on the gym owner that they provide the structure for the staff member to be able to present it.
I love that you talk about structure for it. So to make sure that we're all hearing you well, it's the idea that while presenting a new idea and then adopting and executing a new idea, it takes two to tango. And it's not only the staff member who needs to be able to effectively communicate the value of this thing, the purpose, process, and payoff of it, but the gym owner needs to have a mind that is open to, okay, if we responsibly consider a new idea and how to implement it, there's no reason why I shouldn't listen to it.
Of course. And you said it takes two to tango. The reality is if you have 9 staff, it takes 9.
Yeah, good call.
The issue with most ideas is anybody who has done anything will tell you that ideas are a dime a dozen. The world is not suffering from a lack of ideas. The world is suffering from a lack of quality execution on good ideas and throwing away the things that you executed on well, but that just turned out were bad ideas.
So we have to do two things then. Anytime there's an idea or anytime we're considering ideas to make something better, it's how do we qualify a good idea from a bad one? Mm-hmm. And how do we come up with a way to effectively execute it?
Yes. And I think that the difficult thing that people won't like is that you won't know if it's a good idea until it's been done.
Right.
At the same time, you should be able to flush out some things that when you start to actually go through the logistics of how would this happen, it's clearly identifiable that this is not going to be worth the work we're going to put into it.
All right. This is going to be good. So, all right. Staff member has idea, approaches gym owner. Hey, we should do this. How does this thing kick off? How does an effective process start?
Well, so let's first start with how the process is going right now. I think that's important for people to be able to, like we say, assess, don't guess. I think that where it's starting right now is coaches are in gyms, or even gym owners are in gyms, and they're not respecting the need to earn the buy-in from their staff. They're just like, we're going to do this. Like when I changed the name of the gym over the weekend and told everybody on Monday.
Got it.
Bad idea, by the way. Don't do that. So I think that what's happening right now is people either have a great idea that they've been thinking about for so long. They've been seeing it in other people's gyms. They've been hearing about it on podcasts, maybe this one, hopefully this one. They've been reading about it in books. And it's something that, whether we realize it or not, whether you realize it or not, it's been percolating in your head for weeks, months, years. Now you come to the person who you need to be on your side to make this a reality. And you're like, I have this idea. We should start doing personal training in the gym. And they're like, no, that's a departure from everything that we do. We are a group training facility. No one's going to, like, what are we going to sell it for? $100.
No one's going to buy that.
Dr. Sean said to sell it for $120 a session for one. No one, that guy's an idiot. You guys are crazy, right? We're not doing that. No, get out of here with that idea. It's not complete. First of all, you didn't demonstrate to the person who you provided that idea to that you've been thinking about this for years. Second of all, you probably approached them in the hallway, going from point A to point B with a, hey, what do you think of this? No, thanks for coming though. It's not important enough. Number three, you didn't provide enough context to demonstrate that you empathize with the risk involved and the work involved of running this idea. So the person who you're expecting to adopt it right away is going to look at you and say, there are too many, without even saying it or maybe even knowing it, there are too many variables for us to take action on this idea. It doesn't work. It doesn't play. Thanks for trying though. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, let's make sure. So there are a couple of things that idea presenters need to stop doing immediately, because it's just digging them in a hole and it's not helping anything. If I heard, it's first, let's recognize that this isn't, hey, this just flew into the back of my head. Let's do this. This is something that I've been seriously percolating over for a long time, right? This is a thing that I've been thinking about for a long time. And I think there's a lot of value here. Let's unpack this together. Two, it's take it seriously in the presentation of it. So it's not, oh, we should do this, by the way. It's, hey, can we find a time to talk about something that I think could be really important and impactful for the gym? Yeah. Is that? Mm-hmm. And the last one is absolutely demonstrate that you understand everything that it's going to take from the gym owner and all the staff from a resource and an energy perspective to actually get this thing done.
Without a doubt.
Okay.
And what the opportunity cost is of doing it and not doing it.
Right.
So, you know, when we just had our big quarterly staff meeting, our planning meeting, and everything that we talked about, they were ideas. None of them were like, this must get done. This is something that we're already doing. We must complete it. Everything is an idea. And we put it on the board and we use Dan Sullivan's impact filter from Strategic Coach. If you guys know who Dan Sullivan is, we don't work with him, but he has great materials. And the impact filter was essentially, what's the thing, right? What needs to be true for the thing to be successful? What does success look like? What is the best case scenario if we take action? What's the worst case scenario if we don't? And then we looked at, and did I leave anything out of that? I feel like there's one thing I'm leaving out. I don't remember.
Oh, is it purpose?
What's the purpose of this idea? Yeah. We adopted the impact filter, by the way, for you guys into something that is a little bit more robust for you guys to have more information in front of you to be able to make decisions. It's the PDF that goes with this podcast. So please feel free to download the PDF at activelifeprofessional.com/podcast. It'll also be in the show notes. But so we looked through all of these things that we wanted to do and we started to boil down. Well, this needs to happen now. This can kind of take a back burner. So what you're describing is having context for what these things are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The first time that I ever did anything like this, believe it or not, was when we decided, when I was still partnering with Jeremy at the clinic, that I said, I wanted to have a podcast. But before I went to Jeremy and said, I think we need to have a podcast, I recognized that the way I always came to Jeremy was, I want to do this thing. We should do this. We should do that. We should do this. We should do that. And he was like, dude, too many we should. Like, how do you know? He never said that, but I know I created anxiety, or I'm projecting. I probably created anxiety for him like I have for other people with all these ideas in my head that I think about all the time and don't come through with all of the how, who, what, where, why, what's the cost, right? So I wanted to do things differently. And I sat down and I wrote up, this is what the podcast is. This is the purpose of the podcast. First and foremost, it's for us to be able to network in a way that we otherwise wouldn't be able to. You call somebody like Rachel Balkovec, who's now a good friend of mine, the first female strength coach in professional baseball, and say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain for an hour about how to become a really successful strength coach. And she's probably going to be like, yeah, a lot of people do, and I don't really have the time for that. I'm projecting, Rachel. Please don't be mad at me if that's not the case. But if you say, Rachel, I think you're amazing. I'd love to have you on our podcast so that we can tell thousands of people about how they can do what you did. Oh, okay. Totally different opportunity.
Right. Well, because now you're starting to touch upon something that, assuming or presuming that this person finds a ton of value in having an impact in that way. Now you're touching upon something that is mutually valuable.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's one. Then I started to look at, okay, well, the obvious question that he's going to ask is, where are you going to find the guests? So I had to explain to him that this is the process I'm going to go through to find the guests. And this is when I'm going to do it, so that it's clear it's not in place of me doing what I was supposed to be doing otherwise. Okay, that's now taken off the plate. How long are the podcasts going to be? They're going to be about an hour, because that seems to be the standard podcast length. I had nothing better than that at the time. How many are we going to do per week? 1. Are you going to be able to keep up with 1 per week? Is the infrastructure, and he didn't ask me these things, these are the questions I asked myself. Is the infrastructure in place to do that? I don't know. I should probably talk to Sean Cleary before we decide to do anything about this. He's throwing the finger up at us now. I should probably talk to Sean Cleary about this before I bring anything to Jeremy, to make sure it's even a possibility. What's it going to cost for us to get microphones, a mixing board? I don't know what any of these things are. Sean, what's it going to cost? Right? So he then went and did the research, gave it back to me, and I now had stuff to present to Jeremy. How will we know if the podcast is successful? How will we know if the podcast is a failure? When do we decide? All of those things I had mapped out, so that all he had to do is look at it and be like, wow, he's clearly thought about this. And then weigh it together and decide if we should do it or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what I would love for, let's keep it 100% right now. You're exceptional at asking the kind of questions and making the kinds of considerations you're describing.
Now,
fine. You're exceptional at it. What I want to know is, what kind of person who is like, oh man, that's a lot of shit to think about. What are some very, very general considerations that the person can make, and then take the responsibility to sit with, do the homework, and unpack these to consider more of the particulars and the specifics?
So I think what you're asking me, and please make sure I'm clear on this, is how can somebody with less practice putting all of these factors together, because maybe they don't know how to ask themselves the questions.
Yes.
How do they put together a clear outline for what they want to achieve?
How do you ask the kind of, what are the big basic questions you need to be able to ask? So when you bring something to someone, the person that's receiving it says, this person put some thought into this and is concerned with my energy and my time and my money. Yeah.
So first of all, download the PDF from this episode.
Cool.
And the PDF from this episode has all of the categories that, I mean, I'm sure that there are other categories people could come up with, but all of the pertinent categories that a gym specifically is going to need answers to before they can decide to do something or not to do something. So if you download the PDF from this episode and you fill it out before you present it to somebody else, now you're talking. Now they know you've considered these things.
Dude, you're making it too easy for people.
That's the idea. The other side of this is, you might be home talking to your significant other or your kids or one of your friends about wanting to go to a given restaurant in a night. That's the same. It's the same. The difference is that the threshold for decision-making is probably lower and less people are involved. you need to consider their downside. So instead of considering all of the great things that could happen if this goes well, what are the things that would happen that we would need to do if this goes poorly? How have you planned for that? Believe it or not, this is all sales. People are much more likely to run from fear than they are to run towards aspiration. Mm. What that means in this case is, if I said to you something as simple as, hey, I want to go to that really cool new taco restaurant in town. And you're like, yeah, cool. I don't know if I want to do it tonight. If I haven't considered all the reasons why you don't, before you told me that you don't, it's over. We're not going, or you're going begrudgingly. If I said, hey, I think we should go to the new taco place tonight, and I did this at 12 in the afternoon, but I know that they typically have a fairly long wait, so we should probably call now and see if we can get a table time, or we should schedule the rest of the day so that we can leave in time to stay there and wait, and we can go do this other thing that's right around the block while we're waiting and then come back. Does that sound good to you?
Love it. Yeah. Right? I mean, this is totally connected. I mean, the same principle, and tell me if it's not. People are fractionally motivated by pleasure as they are by pain.
They think they're motivated by pleasure. Right. Because we don't like to be that way.
We'll work 10 times as hard and spend 10 times as much to get out of pain as we will to get into the same amount of pleasure.
Without a doubt. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a crazy thing to think about. We're going off the tangent a little bit, but I think it's important. We all, nobody wants to think of themselves as somebody who runs from fear, who runs from pain. Everybody wants to be like, no, I move towards what I value. Just like nobody wants to be thought of as an average person. But the math is that you're probably average. I hate to say it. You're probably average. That's the math. It works out that most people are. So when it comes to this kind of stuff, the way that you can help somebody move past where they're at is to minimize their downside as much as possible so that you reduce their fear and then present them with the opportunity that has the aspiration that everybody really wants.
Got it. So you're presenting this idea, even if you don't have ways to actually shrink the risk, at the very least, you can show deep consideration of what their downside is.
Well, risk you can shrink by planning. Anxiety is what we're really shrinking with this presentation, because anxiety is the anticipation of future pain. Right? We were discussing yesterday the difference between angst and anxiety. Angst being displeasure with where you're currently at. Anxiety being the anticipation of future pain. So if you came to me, for example, with an idea for the company, without it being complete, at this point in my career and my relationship with you, I would just ask you questions to unpack it. Earlier in my career, I would just shut that down because I don't want to think about what it's going to mean I have to do. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
So, for example, we used to have staff meetings once a month for an hour. You came to me and said, hey, do you want to make this staff extremely powerfully connected and buzzing week to week? Because everyone is buzzing off of that call, and in a week it's going to be dead. Do you want to make it real every week? Yeah, of course. You said you should get rid of hour-long meetings every month and move to 15-minute meetings every week. My relationship with you, my trust with you. Yep, let's do it. And now we do 15-minute meetings every week. Profound improvement in the way our staff communicates.
So let's say we're 6 months into knowing each other and we don't have the same kind of trust.
Right.
All it means is that I need to unpack a little bit more, everything that might cost and everything that you will benefit from.
So what I would love you to do, despite the fact that you're hosting this, is you weren't just on the call like, we should do 15 minutes every week. What were the thoughts that went through your mind that allowed you to say, I think this is what we should do?
Yeah. So the first was the observation of the fact that I try to keep a very, very tight connection to the emotional pulse of the group when we're on that call, just because it's something I'm keenly interested in. How is everyone responding to Dr. Sean's presentation, right? How is he responding to the State of the Union, right? And there are certain calls that are certainly more vibrant than others, right? It's not always crazy sexy. Sometimes it's just keep and chop. But on average, if there's 1 hour a month where the staff is jazzed and connected and tight, well, I don't really think that's enough if we want to move as fast as we want to, right? So if Sean wants things to be moving in a direction more effectively and faster, how can we do that with this tiny little thing? So the first question was, is he willing to find time on a weekly basis instead of a monthly basis? Because even though he's saving time each week on any given day, on any given call, is he willing to now look to budget this? That's the cost for you. Now I need to make sure that the benefit is heavier when I put those two things on the scale. And I imagine that a tighter, more cohesive, more excited staff every single week is heavier on one side of the scale than you needing to just take 60 minutes and split it into 4 times 15. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay.
So everything you just said was true. And it's because of my level of trust in you that I just said, okay, let's try it. What's the worst? I did the internal calculation. Mm-hmm. What's the worst that happens? Right. We just go back to an hour-long meeting. Right. But there are bigger decisions. And there are decisions that we have made as it pertains to things like our workshops, our immersion course. We had an hour-long debate about the future of the immersion course and how we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. And right now, I mean, it sells out every time we own one.
Right.
Every time we run a course, it sells out. Mm-hmm. So making changes to it is kind of like, what are you doing?
Right. That's like baseball players wanting to adopt some more explosive lifting.
Perhaps. It's a little different.
A little different? Well, what the hell do I know about baseball? Very
little. So what I want to do is I want to give people kind of a wrap up on this thing. And I want to give them an idea to what's on the PDF that we created for them. I'm going to pull it up on my computer.
So for any staff members who have vision in their gym, but are not responsible for leading the vision of their gym, I want you guys to understand that this is the perfect opportunity for you to better equip yourselves with the questions you need to get your gym owner keenly motivated and interested in what you want to do. You guys have to trust that you see things clearly, because I've spent a lot of time not trusting that I see things clearly. If you guys trust that you see things clearly and you have very, very clear vision of this is how things are going, this could be amazing for this place, you have to do it, because if not, you're responsible for your place not being as good as it could be. So this is what you guys need to do when you consider, how am I going to get the person in charge of pulling triggers down?
Yeah. And it's also so that you can formulate better ideas for yourself. Like some of the things that you want to do are not good ideas. Go through this for yourself. You'll learn how to better think things through. So here's the list for you guys. And like I said, it's on the PDF, but I want you to hear kind of the depth. We have what is the idea? How will this idea help this business meet its mission? What is the idea going to cost in terms of staffing? What is the management system we're going to use? What equipment and materials do we need? How are we going to market it? What is the one-time cost? What's the recurring cost? Do we need insurance for it? What is our profitability percentage that we're targeting? What is the cost to the client going to be? What are our projections? What are our non-revenue generating metrics? So in other words, if you're doing something to galvanize a community, how are you going to do that with this thing that has nothing to do with money? And if you're not able to come up with answers to all those questions, you haven't completely formulated your idea. So go to the PDF, download it, think this way. It will help you in the future, I promise.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. All right.
Thanks, guys. See you out there.
All right. That's going to be a wrap for this episode of the Active Life Podcast. And guys, remember, if you are looking to enhance your fitness business, if you're sitting there thinking, man, I would love to be able to go on vacations. I would love to be able to take 2 weeks off and not have my business fall apart. And most importantly, if you want to be a part of the movement that we are creating, facilitating, and seeing come to life, which is coaches and gyms becoming the healthcare clinic of the future, helping people who've gotten hurt working out, helping people who've been told they have to work out around that, having people be told they're too old to do that, find new hobbies. If hearing things like that for your clients is frustrating for you and you want to learn the skills to solve those problems and also get paid very well to do it, head to activelifeprofessional.com and let's get talking. Till then, turn pro.